Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arun Harishardhan. I'm the Dean of the Dark Side. And it's my pleasure to be here to have an opportunity to listen to Nitin Agarwal, who is an accomplished expert in his field, and I think you're going to find what he's talking about really exciting in terms of all on social media. And he's really going to talk about how social media can be used in a variety of nefarious ways. So I think you're going to find that interesting. I'm grateful that he's here to share his expertise with us. This has been the mission of the Alvine Engineering Professional Effectiveness and Enrichment Program since it was established more than a decade ago. Through the generosity of Robert Alvine, who is here with us today, please give him he's one of the university's most dedicated benefactors. He was a former chair of the university's board of governors and is an emeritus board member. He has long supported opportunities that enable our students to learn from and interact with leaders in their fields as they pursue their career opportunities. In addition to this speaker series, Bob has created similar programs across the university in the other colleges. And so on behalf of the university community, I would like to thank him for his generosity and his investment in our students. I'd also like to recognize Abe. His little introduction, but he has coordinated the visit today by Nitin. They both engage in nefarious activities. He has done a lot of work, obviously, in cybersecurity and has worked with many students here on campus. And he certainly works with the entire group from the Sub-Arts Lab, who works hard to protect the digital security issues related to the digital world. Investing and continuing to enhance educational experiences of our cybersecurity and computer science students and those who follow them is the central component of the Challenge Centennial campaign, which is now underway. And I know that we have someone from the Development Office who is working with AAoC on that particular campaign as well. He has an exciting vision for the future of cybersecurity at the university, and I think we also invest heavily in the careers and the future of our students. So this time I'd like to invite Abe to come and say something more about our speaker. He knows him more intimately than I do.
So let's give Ron a round of applause. So actually, I met Nitin in New Haven. This guy is important. He was exchanging emails today with, does anyone know?
Vint Cerf.
Yeah. Say the name again.
Vint Cerf.
Does anyone know who Vint Cerf is? Put your hand up if you know who Vint Cerf is. You don't know who Vint Cerf? Okay, one person knows? That's really sad. He's basically the father of the internet. He created the TCP/IP stack, for lack of a better word. And one thing I did not know is that he was born in New Haven, Connecticut. Not Nitin, Vint Cerf. But that's kind of exciting, so you might want to look at that. That's the kind of caliber of the people that Nitin interacts with. And I actually met him in New Haven, Connecticut when we were hosting a conference in 2014, was it? Yeah. I was skinnier, he had less white hair. So with that said, Nitin Agarwal's research aims to push the boundaries of our understanding of digital and cyber social behaviors that emerge and evolve constantly in the modern information and communication platforms. At Cosmos, which is a mouthful, Collaboratorium for Social Media and Online Behavioral Studies, which sounds better than UNHC, right? He is leading projects funded by over 15 million from an array of US federal agencies, including Department of Defense, DARPA, Department of State, National Science Foundation, and plays a significant role in the long-term partnership between UA Little Rock and the Department of Homeland Security. He developed publicly available social media mining tools assisting NATO strategic communications and public affairs, among others. Dr. Agarwal participates in the National Tech Innovation Hub launched by the U.S. Department of State to defeat foreign-based propaganda. His research contributions lie at the intersection of social computing, behavioral cultural modeling, collective action, social cyber forensics, artificial intelligence, data mining, and machine learning. From Saudi Arabian women's right to drive cyber campaigns, to autism awareness campaigns, to ISIS and anti-West, anti-NATO disinformation campaigns, at Cosmos, he is directing several projects that have made foundational and applicational contributions to social and computational science, particularly in understanding coordinated cyber campaigns. I found this out yesterday. He has 30 Ph.D. students right now. Good luck with that, man. He has published 10 books and over 200 articles in top-tier peer-reviewed forums, including the NATO's Defense, Stockholm Journal, and several Best Paper Awards and nominations. His work has been covered by local, national, and international media, including U.S. News, KUAR, Bloomberg, Arkansas Business, Arkansas Times, Arkansas Democrat Gazette, and many others. Over the last several years, Dr. Agarwal has spoken at various public and professional, national and international forums, such as NATO Stockholm's Core, U.S. Department of State, U.S. Naval Space Warfare, Pentagon Strategic Multi-Level Assessment Groups, among others. He got his PhD from Arizona State Universities with an outstanding dissertation recognition in 2009 and was recognized as one of the new influentials 20 in their 20s by Arkansas's Business in 2012. He was recognized with the university-wide Faculty Excellence Award in Research and Creative Endeavors by UALR in 2015. He received the Social Media Educator of the Year Award at the 21st International Education and Technology Conference in 2015. In 2017, the Arkansas Times featured Dr. Agarwal in their special issue on visionary Arkansans. Is it Arkansans? Is that it? Arkansans. Okay. Dr. Agarwal was nominated as International Academy Research and Industry Association IARIA Fellow in 2017, and Arkansas Academy of Computing Fellow in 2018, and Arkansas Research Alliance Fellow in 2008. Is that enough? I mean, I thought I was good, man. I mean, like, you made me look really bad. So without further ado, please let's give him a big round of applause.
At first, I would like to thank Abe, Bob, and Ron for having me here. It's a real pleasure to be here at UNEdge. And when Abe asked me, Nitin, can you be here for the lecture series? I said, there is no way I can say no to that. Anyone who has interacted with Abe, it's hard to say no to Abe. He's very convincing. Ron can agree with that. All right, so can everyone in the back hear me? I'm not a very loud speaker, so those who cannot hear me, keep moving forward until you reach a point where you can hear me. There are a lot of empty seats around here. So I can see some folks at the back who are doing like this. So come forward. We are not going to bite you. There won't be any scary stuff here. So please take the seats in front. Unfortunately, we don't have the microphone. Otherwise, we would be using that. All right. So today, as in the introduction, Abe mentioned that we have a lot of projects going on at Cosmos. Today, what we are going to do is we are going to see a few of those projects, particularly looking at the cybersecurity aspect or more of the social side of the cybersecurity aspect. All of us who has interacted with on social media, by the way, how many of you are on social media? How many of you were on social media but left social media? A few.
Depends what platform.
Well, let's say any social media platform. Let's be generic. And then there are a few who are never on social media. I know. Yeah. So you guys, yeah. So we have a very good mix here. So those who were there and then left made a very good decision, huh? Those who were never there, also a very smart choice. Although social media recently has gained a lot of bad publicity because of the things that we have seen, at some point social media was considered a positive vehicle of change. Not long ago, maybe like a decade ago, we saw the Arab Spring, how social media played an important role in leading up to the uprisings and then socio-political transformations of the Middle East and the North African region countries. But that was 10 years ago. We have seen the role of social media in designing smart healthcare policies, in smart cities, in urban planning, and many other areas where social media has led to a positive change, led to a positive contribution. So in some ways, social media can be considered as a great democratizing tool. It gives voice to everyone. Everyone has a voice. Everyone, whoever has a Twitter account, they can say something and it can be pushed out to the world for everyone to see. But guess what? When everyone has voice and then there is no discipline, it becomes chaos. So everyone can shout, but who is heard the most? Whoever has the loudest voice. Unfortunately, I don't have a loud voice, so I will never be heard. So, but anyway, so this is what we have seen in the recent years. Social media has been exploited by malicious actors, by adversarial actors, to conduct several type of disinformation campaigns. When we hear about disinformation or these things, what comes to mind? Fake news, right? Misinformation campaigns, fake news. And this became a hot topic after 2016 US elections. Basically, 2016 US elections shed a light, a spotlight on fake news, on disinformation campaigns. But does it really the case that these fake news or disinformation campaigns started in 2016? No. These were a long time before, right? Because internet is just one medium where these things can be conducted. If you remember your history, Cold War, even previous to that, there were a lot of propaganda campaigns. Right? These were conducted using printed documents, flyers, pamphlets that were thrown out of the aircrafts in the enemy territories. So it's just a new way or new means of conducting disinformation campaigns. All the old theories, all the old observations and empirical studies that have been done in this regard are applicable and have value in this area. So today what we are going to see is some of the disinformation campaigns that we have studied across the world, not just in the US, but more specifically in Europe, targeted against NATO. Also some disinformation campaigns that we have seen in the Asia Pacific region, and more importantly, what are the trends in those efforts? What type of new or emerging threats we are observing. And then I'll try and conclude with some of the recommendations and some of the solutions that we have so that we can build a network to address this problem. It takes a network to beat a network, right? I would like to point your attention towards this book. Has anyone read this book? Okay. So our popular understanding of the crowds or the mobs can be traced back to this book, which is written by Gustaf Lebon in 1895. Okay? And this is more than a century-old book, right? And he says, or rather he expresses his skepticism about the shift from an agrarian society to modern-day city living. Okay? He says that urban crowd is marked by impulsiveness, irritability, incapacity to reason, rationalize, and the exaggeration of sentiments. Does any of that sound familiar? Right. That's exactly what we are seeing on social media nowadays, on YouTube, on Twitter. Right. Exaggeration of things, or inability to reason, or inability to verify whether it is true or not. We are misled to believe in the craziest of conspiracy theories, and I can list a lot of conspiracy theories that we have seen on YouTube, like birds are fake, they are designed by the government to spy. Those type of conspiracy theories are found on YouTube. Anyway, so he further continues that a man on his own may be a cultivated individual, but in a crowd he is a barbarian. Okay? So what does that mean? And exactly this is what we have observed on social media platforms, that we have these flash mobs which happen at a point. How many of you have seen a flash mob? Right, most of you. Right? This phenomena is quite amazing because you don't know where they came from. They suddenly get together, conduct an act, and then they disperse into the crowd. Okay? But those are physical flash mobs. What we are seeing is a virtual flash mob, where people get together on the internet, conduct an act or a cyber attack or denial of service or distributed denial of service attack, and then they just disappear or disperse into the anonymity of the internet. So those type of behaviors are prevalent in disinformation campaigns as well. And I will show you some examples of those on YouTube, on Twitter, and many other platforms. So when we worry about how our behaviors will change, when we move from the real world to the virtual world, they are all well placed, okay, according to this. There have been many cases where those online mobs have had a physical influence. Right? These are a couple of stories. One of them is from a southern part of India, where a group of individuals spread a rumor on WhatsApp, and then that led to a physical act of violence. Okay. The other one is in Sri Lanka, where Facebook was used to spur extremist acts and acts of aggression against minority communities. Okay. So in this case, what we have seen is the social media can be used to organize individuals into groups, groups into crowd, and crowd into mobs very quickly. Okay. These platforms provide a way for the fringe ideas to get to mainstream, all right? At least for those who believe in those fringe ideas. Okay. Misinformed mobs could quickly become vicious and then can lead to violent acts, as we have seen. Okay. So in our program, in our research, what we're trying to do is we're trying to study these groups and their disinformation campaign tactics, and try to understand what type of other techniques and procedures they are using to conduct these acts. Can we predict those, or can we predict the success or failure of those? And through that, can we then help develop countermeasures to diffuse certain disinformation campaigns? There is a lot of disinformation or propaganda that is spread or that is pushed by, let's say, some state actors or non-state actors, but not everything picks up, right? So the question is, do we target all of those campaigns? Of course not. We cannot. We don't have resources. We don't have infinite resources to target all those campaigns. But through these models, if we can try and identify which ones are picking up or which ones are gaining momentum, then we can prioritize the resources. Okay? So that's the idea. So a moment ago, I talked about deviant or flash mobs, rather. Right? We have seen the instances of flash mobs in variety of cases. On the top left corner, we have ISIS groups. Right? ISIS has used social media very tactfully. Right? It has even baffled some of the most advanced social media strategy companies. The type of coordinated campaigns that we have seen from ISIS in terms of radicalization, in terms of recruitment, in terms of raising funds for their operations is quite disturbing and disturbingly sophisticated. Another case is a deviant hacker networks, which is a study that we conducted with Abe, Professor Bagili. And although I'm not going to talk about that in much depth here, but we have several publications on that where we have looked at the different types of communication styles that these hacker networks have adopted over the years and how they have evolved on Twitter and other platforms, from declaring the target to sending a message claiming the target has been accomplished. So they use something called Tango Down, which is target down. So these type of messages can be found on Twitter. If you search for Tango Down, you'll probably find which new attack was coordinated and successfully accomplished in the recent times, maybe like a past day or last week or so on. A similar type of deviant mobs have been observed in the anti-NATO propaganda groups who are targeting NATO. Okay, and I'm going to go into more depth into this because a lot of our studies have looked at exercises that NATO conduct, and then we have helped them in understanding what type of disinformation campaigns are being run targeting NATO, and then how can we address those through their strategic communication efforts. and of course internet trolls. So all of them have this thing in common, which is a group of actors, in this case malicious or adversarial actors, get together at a place which is often one of the social media platforms or a coordinated effort, multiple social media platforms, conduct their cyber operation, and then they disperse into the anonymity and nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be found. Okay. But largely, when we talk about misinformation or fake news, our attention goes directly to the political sphere, okay, in elections, in campaigns, in political campaigns. But misinformation is not just localized to politics or elections. Right? There are several cases of information or misinformation in medicine. Right? In fact, there is a new term that has been coined, which is known as misinfodemics, which is a play of words of misinformation epidemics. So basically, any epidemic that has been artificially created using misinformation. Okay. This is one of the memes that you will see on a lot of these discussion forums, where I'm suspecting everyone has seen the movie Matrix here. Right? So this is a very common theme from there. It's being projected as Neo, where your immune system is so strong that you don't need any vaccine. But since you all have seen that movie, we all know that even Neo had to take a pill in that movie. Right? So that's kind of funny in a way. Now this is a communication network on Twitter between two communities. A community that is known as anti-vaxxer community, and a community that is supporting autism, or they care for autism. One thing that you will see here is there are very tight connections here, meaning these two communities talk to each other a lot. If you guys have heard or read the debate between the anti-vaccination and the autism, you know why this is the case. Because there has been this conspiracy theory that vaccines lead to autism. Right? And there is a very active debate on Twitter. What you can see here is what type of actors are perpetrating that conspiracy theory on Twitter, and how the support group for autism is trying to counter that disinformation or that health misinformation through their efforts, through their positive campaigns. There is a lot to be learned from here. Okay. How we can address misinformation in our political sphere by launching positive campaigns, as opposed to engaging or feeding the trolls. You would rather have a positive campaign that can affect the discourse, that can lead the discourse to a positive outcome.
Who's Tanner's dad?
Sorry?
Tanner's dad. Is that like somebody who has a kid that they don't want to vaccinate? You know?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea who these actors, who these individuals are, but yeah.
Is this from Twitter?
This is from Twitter,
Okay.
yeah. And again, if you're interested, we can share this data and work with you. But just since you've asked this question, and some of you might be wondering, the size of the node corresponds to how many interactions they've had. So the more messages they have exchanged, the bigger their node gets. Yeah. Okay. Another misinformation that we have seen in medicine domain, which is one of the recent ones, is this one, which is statins. So this one is basically, it's trying to say that different social media platforms are now trying to stop this menace by removing the content that talks about misinformation. So removing or censoring the content on social media platforms, or trying to fix the algorithms that may recommend those type of things. But then these efforts are largely limited and overwhelmed by the bots or the artificial driven campaigns. Okay. This is another one where it had a physical significance. In this case, the rise of measles, or the outbreak of measles. Okay. Again, with the vaccination community, where in Orthodox communities in New York and Orthodox communities in Eastern Europe, especially in Ukraine, there were a sharp rise of measles cases. Measles was largely considered to be eradicated, right? But then just because of that anti-vaccination debate, anti-vaxxers, this is now becoming a big problem. Okay. It's also permeated the health and wellness sector. Okay. There are cases where there are reports about statins, the heart drug, can cause cancer, which has discouraged patients to take that medicine, putting them at risk of any cardiovascular episode. Okay. So what I'm saying is, misinformation or disinformation is not just restricted to one domain, not just in politics. It's everywhere. Okay. The other one is pink salt. How many of you use pink salt? You use, okay. So you probably fall prey to that misinformation campaign. It says pink salt can cure everything, right? And that's medically, or there is no study behind that conspiracy theory. But then this has been active and effective so much that one of the big retail stores, Whole Foods, started running out of pink salt in their on their shelves. So it was one of the most sold products, newcoming products. Misinformation is also rampant in agriculture. Coming from Arkansas, this is a big issue in Arkansas. I have spoken to many farmers and ranchers association who have been personally affected by the type of misinformation that they have seen on the internet. Things like GMO crops can cause obesity, diabetes, autism, and various type of disorders. Another one is this, which is also very pertinent. Every Thanksgiving, Walmart has an interesting problem, not only to make sure that they don't run out of turkey, but also they get a lot of rumors around Turkey that there is a salmonella outbreak, and they have to deal with it. So far, they have been ignoring those type of conspiracies, but it has become a menace that it started affecting their profits. Walmart is headquartered in Arkansas, so they have asked me to look into this. So we are working with Walmart to understand how or when these type of hoaxes are spread and how they gain momentum and who is behind that. Can we try and counter that by putting a positive message out there before the campaign gains momentum? This one was particularly very interested because the type of or the actors who were involved in this 2015 campaign were connected to somehow the accounts that were identified by Mueller's report about election interference in 2016. So in some cases, Russians are behind that, huh? Yeah. Misinformation during disasters, and that's also one of the very critical areas, disaster management. We have seen images of ominous clouds or sharks floating in the highways or in your backyard, right? And every hurricane, this happens. In fact, we have tracked this story. So we have a grant from DARPA where we are looking at how bots can affect misinformation campaigns, can cause misinformation campaigns, amplify the messages. So we are looking at this story, which started out in 2005 as the original image from National Geographic, and then that image was picked up during several hurricanes. In 2011, we saw this shark, which was actually swimming in the coast, but now swimming on one of the freeways, and the same shark was swimming in Houston, and then Hurricane Harvey in Houston, and Daytona Beach in Florida. So the same shark floats around everywhere. Again, this is a misinformation, but this is innocent. This is probably a joke or a satire, so it does not affect as much. Actually, you can do a research and see the floating shark story has gained steam over the years. So it's almost, now everyone knows that shark, probably by the first name. Yeah. Now, but this may be innocent, but there are also a lot of other misinformation campaigns that are not as innocent during disasters. We picked up one which said that the rescue shelters that are set up during disasters such as hurricanes, they're asking or checking for paperwork from migrants. and essentially trying to discourage migrants getting there, or if the migrants show up without adequate paperwork, they will be deported. Okay. And this was found in Florida and Houston and many other southern United States states. Yeah. So some of these have really strong consequences and disaster management and so on. Yeah. But those are mostly created by humans using Photoshop or some type of software, right? But we are stepping into an era of deep fakes, right? And I see Abe is smiling because 3 years ago we were discussing about this, and can we track? So Abe had an idea, can we track how these fake images or fake videos can be spread? And now we are talking about that, right? So yeah, in some sense, Abe is a visionary. Yeah. All right. So this is computational AI propaganda, right? Or artificial intelligence-based propaganda. I'm sure everyone now is familiar with what a deep fake is. It's an artificially created image or a video which resembles very closely to a real video. To a naked eye or to a human without much experience, it's very difficult to distinguish whether it's fake or it's real. And it is generated by a computer using deep neural networks or generative adversarial networks and these type of advanced AI techniques. You can have fake text. Just by writing a few sentences, you can generate a whole article. None of these faces in this picture is real. All of them are fake. And then, of course, the famous video of Obama trashing Trump and various other political leaders. So all these are fake, but generated by AI or artificial intelligence approaches. Okay. So we are getting into this space where production of such fake content is also going to be very easy, zero cost, and then easier to spread. And there are many studies that have pointed it's not the creation, it's the dissemination. Dissemination is the aspect that makes a campaign viral. So you can create as much as obtrusive content as possible. But if it is disseminated far and wide, that's what makes it strong. And largely, the role played in dissemination is humans and not bots. Many studies. What is the reason behind that for these things? One of them is definitely manipulation and monetization. Right? These state actors, whether Russia, China, they want to assert their influence. They want to have hysteria propagation or create chaos in the society, sow division or discord in the society, so on. These are some statistics on where we are getting our popular news and stories and such. I'm sure everyone is familiar with this. Almost 1/3 of Americans trust the information they get from social media. 14% of Americans consider social media as the most important source of information and so on. So we are using social media as a source of news. Okay, so it's very easy to use that platform to conduct information operations or influence operations. Manipulation is one. The other is monetization. How many of you know about the fake news factory? Wahid knows, okay. A few weeks ago, I was in Macedonia. Macedonia is got a lot of popularity during 2016 US elections. There were several teenagers who got extremely rich in Macedonia just by launching fake news websites that were targeting Hillary Clinton's campaign in negative ways, trying to spread propaganda about Hillary Clinton, misinformation about Hillary Clinton, the Pizzagate stories and all of that. So this has become an enterprise. You can make money off of it. I'm not encouraging anyone to engage into those activities here, but it is possible. And I have collected some of these statistics from dark markets. For $55,000, you can launch a campaign to discredit a journalist. For $200,000, you can even instigate a protest in a street. For $30, you can create an 800-word fake news article, and so on and so forth. Right. In fact, there are many vending machines in Japan which you can just drop in your quarter, and then you can buy followers on your Instagram post. So it has become an in some cases, legitimate business. The other reason why these things are done is hysteria propagation. Okay. Now, since we are talking about conspiracy theories, here is another one. Chuck E. Cheese recycles customers' uneaten pizza slices into new. And this is the most watched conspiracy theory on YouTube. It's not that people don't discredit this. People do discredit this, but it is just so obscure, so far-fetched that you would want to enjoy just watching that. So that's what drives the views or virality of these campaigns. And what it does is basically, when you watch certain things on YouTube, YouTube tends to suggest more and more of those, right? How many of you watch videos on YouTube? I'm not suggesting these ones, but any video, educational videos and such, right? Just keep your hands up. How many of you stay there for the next video that they recommend? Yeah, the statistics. The YouTube reported that 70% of their traffic comes from the recommended videos, which is quite a high number. Means 2/3 of the people stay there for the next video. And when you're shown more and more such perverse content, then you know what's going on, right? We are pushed and pushed far down that conspiratorial rabbit hole. So this guy who pushed all these conspiracy has over 30 million views in just 1 month. And all those views actually become dollars. So they're making, a lot of money. These are also used for radicalization and recruitment. So these are ISIS networks. Last night during dinner we were talking, Wahid and I were discussing about how Twitter was used by ISIS in their recruitment. So this red network on the left is the network that where we have looked at who are the top recruiters and what type of coordination they have had to find new members to join their group. Okay.
Brother, sorry.
Yes.
What's the link between Greenland and ISIS?
Yeah, interesting you observed that. Thank you for asking that question. It's a very good question. I was going to ask otherwise. If you hadn't asked this question, I would have asked this question. It is quite anomalous to see the location. So before I answer that question, let me set the context why these two pictures are connected. The big dots here, the green, the blue, all these dots are top recruiters of ISIS. And through metadata collection and deep web data collection, we were able to identify where they are tweeting from, or at least where they want us to know they're tweeting from. We put those locations on the map, and as you can see, someone is tweeting right from the center of Greenland. What does it tell us? Of course, that's not true, right? But it tells us that these folks are so internet and tech savvy that they know how to spoof their location. Not only they are good communicators in getting their recruitment campaigns successful, but also they are very tech savvy, they can spoof their location. That is one instance. The other instance was this case. Where is my mouse? Yeah, this case. This is right in the center of Africa. This guy, although shows that he is from Africa, tweeting from Africa, physically this guy was apprehended in Bangalore, India. After he was apprehended, the account was still active, actively tweeting and actively reaching out, which meant that these accounts are not handled by a single individual. There is an organization behind each of these accounts. Okay. Another guy here, this was the story which I brought up last night during dinner. This guy tweeting from Australia right during the hostage crisis in Australia in December 2015. This guy, although he was a very active top recruiter for ISIS, cleansed his identity. Now he says that completely he's tweeting from Moscow. He changed all the text from Arabic to Russian and so on. So that shows some sort of linkages between what we have observed in our Russian disseminated campaigns versus ISIS campaigns. Okay. Often when I give this talk, I'm asked the question, so why can't we just suspend these actors and then kill their networks, right? Of course, yes, it is doable. Twitter has done that, and we have also seen the effect of this. So this visualization actually tries to answer that question, that The actors on the left in the red are the ones that have been apprehended or suspended accounts. The ones in the white are still active, or at least they were active when we conducted this study. If you look at this, out of the 10, half of them have been suspended, which meant that half of their network is gone, half of their network campaigning should be gone. But what happened was, during those 6 months of study, we saw a 100% rise in their recruitment efforts. So even though the network is killed by 50%, they were actually 100% more active. Okay? So yes, it is a necessary step. You need to suspend these actors, but that is not an adequate step. Okay? We need to do more. All right, so I'll switch gears and I'll talk about all the different types of trends that we have observed in these campaigns. I call them as trends of disinformation campaigns. The first one is there is a growing usage of multiple social media platforms, cross-media orchestration or cross-platform orchestration that we have observed in numerous campaigns the last several years, over 7 years. There is a growing use of niche platforms, like Gab.ai, Discord. How many of you have heard of Gab? Discord? Discord is an app for gamers, but it's also a very good recruitment platform. Okay, Discord, Gab. Also region-specific platforms. So many of us use WhatsApp, but WhatsApp is used a lot more in the global south, in Asia Pacific region, in Latin American countries, in European countries, in African countries. So that's also becoming a platform where a lot of disinformation campaigns are conducted. The second trend that we have observed is creating a network of disinformation or adversarial actors. As opposed to having the disinformation campaigns run by a single individual, they are largely coordinated and very sophisticated. Right? So communities and coordination. Right? So we have seen some instances of flash mob style coordination, but I will show you hard evidence of what a flash mob style coordination looks like on YouTube platform. We have observed blogger communities, how they are conducting their operations, blog farms, also known as coordinated clickbaits. Okay? We'll see those instances. And then something new, which is a coordinated deepfake effort, okay, that we just discovered in Canadian elections a few weeks ago. And then what it all boils down to is something called algorithmic manipulation, where all these efforts are trying to game the search or recommendation algorithms of those social media platforms. So what a user would see would be manipulated. Okay. So our studies have largely focused on tracking anti-West, anti-European Union, anti-NATO propaganda. We have participated in several NATO exercises starting from 2015 with Dragoon Ride in European countries. And then most recently, early this year, we were part of something called Baltic operations, where our goal is to track what is being said against NATO, and then who is saying that, what are the adversarial actors, groups, what type of strategies they are using to coordinate those disinformation campaigns, sharing that with US DoD, with NATO and other agencies, and then helping them in shaping their counter efforts through their STRATCOM Center of Excellence. We have also monitored extremist groups like ISIS, Deviant hacker networks, and we are currently monitoring disinformation campaigns in the Asia Pacific region. Right from here, I'll go to Singapore to talk about our efforts in Asia Pacific region and how Chinese soft influence has been felt in that part of the world. And then we have monitoring Canadian elections and other elections in different parts of the world. The first one that I mentioned was cross-media orchestration, where we have noticed that often things start from the remote corners of the internet, like 4chan, Reddit, YouTube, and so on, and then they make their way through Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter. Okay? So if you think of this as blogs and YouTube as the payload where narratives are framed, and then Facebook, Twitter, and all these other platforms as a dissemination vehicle where they deliver those framed agendas. The question is, why did they start from blogs? The simple answer is, first, there is no character limit on blogs. There is no censorship on blogs. On Twitter, you can get suspended. Twitter can suspend you if you violate their agreement. But on blogs, there is no such thing. You can start your own blog. Just buy a domain and then start your own blog. Anything that is said there stays on blogs as a digital archive. All the commentary is there. So they serve as a permanent digital town hall. Okay. So as I said, things start from blogs. For example, in this case, where we tracked some anti-NATO narrative, start from blogs, and then they make their ways through Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and many other platforms. Right? We have several studies on this phenomena that have been published by the Stratcom Center of Excellence, and these are available publications. So if you are interested in reading what was the methodology, how we tracked that, feel free to go on to those publication outlets and download the papers. Tracking narrative is one, but then tracking how they're connected and affiliated to other groups is also important, because unless you know the conduits, you don't know how the information is flowing. So you need to understand that. So using something called cyber forensics, or social cyber forensics rather, we are able to detect who is connected to who or who is affiliated with whom. This is one such case where we found an anti-war activist, anti-NATO activist, was a founder of a Twitter page, also founder of another Facebook page, which was then affiliated to another Twitter page, and so on. So basically, we are trying to build a digital trail, or sort of a breadcrumb trail. This is a little bit more about how we are doing, how we are revealing or establishing these connections using social cyber forensics. Looking at the metadata like email addresses, traffic tracker codes. If you know how to set up a website and do traffic monitoring, you know what a traffic tracker code is, which is a unique arbitrary sequence of characters assigned to an individual. So if you find the same tracker code being used on multiple websites, then you know that there is a high likelihood that multiple users or all these multiple websites are being managed by a single individual. So things like that, right? So those are just some heuristics that helps us build these networks. Once you know the network, then it's much easier to find how these information, or how an image or a meme or a video is traveling across the internet. This is an example of a very sophisticated cross-media campaign that was observed during Trident Juncture 2018, another flagship NATO exercise. Over 30,000 troops participate from several countries. This was conducted in Scandinavia region. And what happened was, the day after the exercise was over, this was November 8th, soldiers were packing their bags, they were leaving. And then suddenly on November 8th, there was this incident where the Norwegian frigate collided with an oil tanker. Okay? And this was largely a captain's fault, so the mistake was admitted. But what happened after that was something of notice. Russians had a field day on that. So they started having these memes. Okay? Navy SEALs, they don't know what they're doing. Okay? Yep. And then we saw multiple such reports on Twitter, on Facebook, on VKontakte, which is Russian Facebook, and many other platforms. Okay, so it was YouTube. So it was a very well coordinated anti-NATO, sort of a satirical campaign. We started monitoring that also on blogs. These two blogs were identified. When we dig deeper into those blogs, we found that they had further tentacles into other parts of the internet, right? Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and so on. So many other platforms were used. Okay, so this shows you the depth of such campaigns and ability of cyber forensics to be able to discover those things. Okay. The second thing that I mentioned was communities and coordination. Okay, so next few slides may be too technical for you guys, so I'll just skip over that. The idea here is, how can we identify these groups who are coordinating? So at one end, you have leaders in the network based on how well they're connected or who are they connected to. On the other end, you have communities where you want to know who is connected to whom and how those communities emerge. What we're trying to do is we're trying to merge these two concepts to know who are the influential communities or influential groups in the network. So that's somewhere in this middle. So this is a bi-level optimization that does that to extract those communities and influential communities. And then once we have that, then we use something called a collective action theory and the mathematical formulation of that theory to measure how powerful each such structure is. Okay. So again, think of this as an influential set of individuals as opposed to set of influential individuals. Okay. We have a software, so none of us would like to do math every time on the network. So what we have done is we have created a software called focal structure analysis, and the URL is down here. This is recorded so everyone can watch and look up the URL. But this application allows you to identify these key structures or key coordinators for any network. Okay. Now the point here is we use these models, these behavioral models, socio-computational models, to then identify who are these key coordinators in a propaganda campaign or in the ISIS network or in other type of networks. Okay. Now this was a case where we identified a focal structure containing this British blogger who was anti-Ukraine, living in Ukraine, talking or vlogging, video blogging, vlogging about Ukraine. So much so that he was banned from Ukraine, so he could not enter Ukraine because he was gaining a lot of followership in Ukraine, and he was detrimental to the Ukrainian policies. So he was banned from entering Ukraine. He left. He did not go back to Britain. He went to Russia. Now he actively and proudly vlogs from Russia, again on the same topic. Yep. So these are the type of findings that we have had through these models, where we have real physical evidence of these key coordinators. This is another study where we are looking at how we can identify key communities or key coordinators in the blogging, in the blogosphere, in the blogging world. So this was identified in Asia Pacific. So this green set of bloggers are the ones that we found that were very highly coordinating. Okay. In Philippines, we detected several bloggers in this chart where they were coordinating. Okay. The reason why we were able to infer that they were coordinating was based on the usage of resources. So all these green dots are websites or resources that they have used, either images, videos, or some website. And we found out that after detecting through the focal structure analysis, these bloggers were actually sharing the same link, identical links. Right? And not just one or two links, hundreds of these links. So that shows quite drastic and significant evidence about their coordination strategies. Upon digging deeper, we found that some of their websites, like this one, is a fake news website called NSNBC, not MSNBC. So we are all familiar with MSNBC, the legitimate news website, but this is NSNBC. If you go there, you'll find a lot of very similar style of MSNBC reporting, but completely fake. Another pattern that we had discovered is coordinated clickbaits or blog farms, where again, same website in the center, right here. One website has many clone websites or fronts that they have opened, okay? And they're all connected based on the same tracker code. So all of these websites are using the same traffic tracker code. So that tells us that single individual or an organization is one behind this entire operation. Why did it do that? Multiple reasons. One of them is to fabricate perception of the viral content. As soon as the content appears on the center website, it shows up on all these other websites. So Google or any search engine thinks that this is a viral content, let's start showing this up higher in our search rankings. Second, hyper-targeting. If you visit some of these websites, they have those cookies or ways to track what you're doing, what you're saying. So they know where you're coming from, your IP address, for the machines that you're using, browsers, or everything possible that they are collecting, they collect on you. The third is, I already mentioned about the search engine manipulation. The last one is financing. Many of these fronts have financing operations. So these are auto trader websites, real estate websites, fake drug websites. So the money that is generated through these operations are funding this campaign.
What about multiple languages?
Yeah. So that's a very good question. So you see them, there are at least 3 colors here, right? Half of them, roughly half of them were established in Russia with the .ru domain, and then the remaining half were established in Ukraine with .ua domain. So they were using multiple languages. And they do that for a reason that they want to reach out to certain target audience.
Are they doing it using like Google Translate, or are they actually putting in the effort of like doing real translation?
So their translation, because we have translated using Google, so we know that those reverse translation from Google were not perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So perhaps they were using some machine-driven conversion of language. Yeah. Good question. Another very recently discovered phenomena was coordinated fake websites. So during Canadian elections, we just concluded last week, we saw that for a website that was claiming that Justin Trudeau was not a friend of Indian Canadian community, there were 291 websites, at least these were the ones that we were able to identify. 291 fake websites were created that were pushing or amplifying that narrative. It's not just as simple as that. These websites were created using a service called Built With API, which is like a fake, deep fake for websites. So just like you can create fake videos or fake images, right? You can create fake websites just by a push of a button. So all these websites, so again, the large coordinated campaign. Yeah. Also on YouTube, right? So we have seen that on YouTube, the way coordination works is very different. We have tracked for Asia Pacific region, a channel called Hot News has several other channels affiliated with it. Okay. Many of these channels have same content, identical or similar content. For example, these 3 videos belong to 3 different channels. At least the first 2, you can see that they look identical, right? Except some changes in the background. And then the last video seems different. Right? It has a different background, but all 3 are the same. There is the same audio script behind it. If you play these 3 videos, they have the same identical script about that. Right? But they have changed the narration style. So for one of them, they use a different voice modulator, the other different, and so on. Right? But these are all robotic narrations. So there is no human who is narrating these. These are robotic. Okay. Now it is easy for you to see this effort because I have shown you all the work that is done behind that, right? But it is very difficult to identify these things in a live manner as things are being pushed on YouTube, because we know on YouTube every minute you get 24 hours of video footage, which is a lot of content. Then imagine sifting through all of that content to identify such copies. It's very difficult, right? It's very complex and very costly, expensive. So what we have done is we are trying to investigate into a new type of information processing, where given a video, we try to convert that video to a representation like this, which is unique to every video, unless they are identical. Now in this case, these are 2 different channels having almost similar videos, okay? The interesting part is this video is embedded in this video. So when you look at these 2 barcodes carefully, you will find that the first barcode is compressed and included in the second one. Right. So this blue band is the same position here, followed by a bunch of black bands and so on. So yeah. So this we just started working on this through some grant from Air Force Research Lab. And this is helping us process these videos much faster than any other capability. Okay. So it's not just the content on the YouTube. The commentary that happens on YouTube, the comments underneath the videos, they play a big role in having a high rank of that video or making or pushing that video up into the YouTube recommendation algorithms. So we have seen that several commenters here have formed communities like this. right? Which is everyone is connected to everyone. And then they move from one video to the other and comment profusely to the extent that YouTube thinks that this is a viral content. Otherwise, there is no reason why so many comments are being posted so quickly or so much in number. Okay. When we stretch that to several channels, this is what it looks like. So you have 5 different channels here, and looking at all their commenters, we detected several core commenters who were common to many of these channels. What they were doing is basically going from one channel to the other, from one video of that channel to the other, and just commenting profusely. Okay, so these are your flash mobs. This effort is not just localized within YouTube, this stretches beyond YouTube. So any video that is posted on YouTube now has simultaneous operations on Twitter. Bots on Twitter are also amplifying that. So it's not just the commenters on YouTube that are amplifying the visibility of this content, it is also being amplified by Twitter and also by WhatsApp. So that's a new pipeline, YouTube WhatsApp pipeline. Videos pushed out on from YouTube to WhatsApp, people watch on WhatsApp, and then they further reshare, and then they watch the related videos and reshare those. I just put this slide to show the extent of bots over the last few years. Okay. Starting from 2014 to 2016, we have tracked how the bots have evolved, Twitter bots have evolved. And starting from a very naive coordination structure where everyone follows everyone, you identify one bot, you identify the entire group. But in this case, towards the end in 2016, they have sort of an emergent organization phenomena where you have designated roles and responsibilities for each of these accounts. Some of them are master bots who delegate tasks to the peripheral bots who then just go out and push that message. All of that has actually impacted the YouTube search rankings. So when you search for South China Sea, now you will see the channels that we had detected as suspicious channels. The content from those channels show up high in the search ranking. So they are able to effect algorithmic manipulation. Even during NATO exercises, which are the same, half of the top 10 were from suspicious channels. Half of the top 10 content was from suspicious channels. You don't see NATO channel anywhere here, except I think there is one, number 6, which is a verified German army, Bundeswehr army channel that was pushing some content. What they're doing is influential posts, get-togethers, stop NATO, and so on. We have collected several anti-NATO narratives or themes that we have discovered over the years through these efforts. So what type of narratives are being pushed by these coordinated campaigns? This is the list of those. Anti-NATO imagery that is being pushed on these blogs, on Twitter, on other platforms, Pinterest, Instagram, and so on. All this research has been transitioned into technologies like block trackers and YouTube trackers, which has been used during the exercises and various other to study various other campaigns. These tools are also part of Department of State fighting for a foreign propaganda initiative, and we have used that to do YouTube content analysis, especially in this case, location of the videos, where these are coming from. So you can see that most of these videos are coming from the United States, quite understandably, but a lot of them are also coming from Russia. Okay, at least they have disclosed that they're Russia. The color coding means that they are hostile. So most of the content that comes from Russia is anti-NATO. Understandable. You can also do target audience analysis, which language, the content in which language gains more views, gains more comments in that region. Since this was collected during Trident Juncture, in Scandinavian region. So that's why it is quite understandable that the largest number of views were obtained on Norwegian content. But it shows us that which segment of the population, which segment of the region these videos are targeting and whether it is doing well or not. So much of the views are coming from Norway, so yeah, the campaigns are working. We can do keyword trend analysis or frequency of posting analysis and so on. So I know that we are running out of time, so I'll just quickly start wrapping up. I'll list some of the resources which has all these research. Okay, the thing about bots has been published by Army University Press. in large-scale combat operation. It's a 7-book series. So it's publicly available, so you don't have to pay anything. Just go to the link, download. These are some of the books that have published our research from NATO Stratcom. We have our book on deviance in social media using social cyber forensics. Okay, so I have a physical copy with me. If you're interested to browse, feel free to come down and then take a look at that. Since this is important, we also do social media training courses in different parts of the world. So I do at least twice a year social media training course up in Riga, Latvia, for the NATO Stratcom. So several NATO members come there, their public affairs officers, their PSYOP or InfoOp officers, and then we teach them how to use these social media tools to understand disinformation campaigns, and when they craft or design their own campaigns, counter campaigns, how to monitor the progress of those campaigns. Within the Arkansas state, we have something called American Cyber Alliance, which is an initiative started by Arkansas governor. So the governor is on board with these activities. U.S. Senator John Bozeman, he has greatly championed the work that we are doing, which helps us in getting some congressional markups for our research. Our mayor, Little Rock mayor, is also on board with the type of things that we are doing. So we have great support, but we still need to grow the network because it takes a network to beat the network. We have a conference called Social Computing Conference in Washington, D.C., every second week of July every year. So if you're interested in these type of efforts, please feel free to take a look at the website and also come or send your students. I'm running a social cybersecurity working group under the auspices of South Hub. So if you're interested in these type of activities, want to know more about what are the other groups who are working on this and what type of capabilities we have, so I would welcome you to join that group. It's a monthly teleconference group where we discuss things that are of vital importance for national security, global security, and other challenges. And every year we have an on-site meeting, which happens on CMU campus or sometimes in Washington, D.C., to know and just to basically create a synergy within the group, generate grant proposals, applications, and then funding opportunities, and so on. So to summarize, I would say that we need more effort and transparency. We need to have a debate with social media companies. Often an important key player who's missing from these debates is the social media companies. We paint a very negative picture of them and then we charge or slap heavy fines on them, but they need to be part of the solution as well. We need to invest or look into emerging technologies like blockchain, virtual reality, and such, build collaborative networks of practitioners. Most important thing is strengthen media literacy programs. We have seen real advantages of those programs in Finland and many other countries in Europe that have started media literacy from the very early stages of the student and child development. So, but those are all long-term solutions. So we need both long-term as well as short-term. Okay. And then eventually we need to have a dialogue and debate on cyber diplomacy, because we were discussing this right before the presentation in Abe's office, that how can we have a regulated or a clean internet. So we need to at least start that dialogue, start that debate. Yeah. So I would like to acknowledge and thank all the agencies that have supported our work over the years. Without their help, it would not have been possible. And I also would like to thank every one of you who have stayed through this tortuous 1-hour lecture on disinformation campaigns. And probably you're even far more discouraged to be on social media than you were before joining this lecture. So it is my great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Abe. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Bob, for doing this series. And thank you all for being here.
Any questions?
I have Wahid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nitin. This was very informative. I actually learned a lot. As cybersecurity researchers and practitioners, we need to know the tactics of the adversary to be able to defend against. So I'm going to pose this weird question to you. What's your recommended recipe for a misinformation campaign?
To conduct or to beat?
To conduct.
Okay. I was just trying to be clear. To conduct misinformation campaigns, so far what we have seen which has been successful is as I mentioned, those trends. So as opposed to conducting the campaign yourself, have a network conduct that campaign. So involve more users, involve key actors who can help conduct that campaign. Have it on multiple platforms as opposed to just on Twitter or just on Facebook, because not everyone is on a single platform. You have multiple different eyes looking at different things on different platforms. So you want to have a cross-platform, a network effect, and yeah, just have some deep fakes in there, have some music, have some entertaining elements to it. Because the more crazy it is, the farther it will travel. Yeah. I don't know if I gave bad ideas or wrong ideas. Yeah. But those are the things that you can also use to defeat a misinformation campaign. Yeah. Yes.
You know, has there been any study to see if these campaigners, they do one thing successfully, are they able to move on and do another thing successfully? Do they care about the subject, or is it the act that they're in?
That's a very good question. So short answer is probably not. They don't care about the subject. We have seen in numerous cases where the same group was responsible for campaigns during agriculture, anti-GMO campaigns. The same group is responsible for sowing discord in US along the racial lines. So the topic is not fixed. The tactics are fixed, however. The type of strategies they use, they're common. You can actually build a signature of their campaign strategies and their tactics, and then compare that across different such efforts, and then detect whether this was a particular group or not. Yeah, interesting.
I think we can close, and if people have questions, we can approach it outside in case there's something.
Sure.
Nitin,
Yeah.
thank you. Let's give him a round of applause.